Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome back. Hope you're all enjoying the big snow storm and just staying warm inside. We've had a couple days off, so this is our first day back for the week. We're going to go over the science study guide over the astronomy unit that you completed last week on Thursday. So I'll go through the answers on Bright Thinker, and there's a few other things that are just some little tips for the assignment today as well. So I'm going to present over to Bright Thinker now. Okay, your questions might have been in a slightly different order, but let's go through all of the questions that you would have done for your science study guide. Okay, the first one here is, when the moon passes through Earth's shadow and the moon is dark, sun, earth, and moon, what do all of those form when the moon passes through the Earth's shadow and the moon is dark? A lunar eclipse, that's right. So a lunar eclipse is when you aren't able to see the moon even when you normally would because it's being blocked. Small pieces of rock, metal, or both. These were once asteroids and comets. Anybody know what these are? Okay, so these are kind of the tricky ones: meteor, meteoroid, and meteorite. So I've got actually, as part of the assignment today, a little tip on how to keep these straight. So I want to pull that up for you. Okay, so part of your assignment today includes this little tip that says, the Latin origin for meteor is meteorum, which means the celestial phenomena, things in heaven above, things high up. Now, when this suffix "ite" is added, meteorite means like a meteor, of or resembling to a meteor. Okay. Meteoroid is resembling or like, which means not exactly the same, similar. But meteorite is like a part of. So the way to remember these three is that meteoroid just resembles or is like an asteroid or comet. A meteor is an object in the Earth's atmosphere, and a meteorite pertains to or is a part of a meteor. Okay, so going through these, we should have, so a meteoroid, when it enters Earth's atmosphere, this is also known as a shooting star. That would be meteor. And then a piece of one, just a piece of it, is a meteorite. And that leaves meteoroid right here. Okay, so those might need to be ones that you would study a little bit extra. I know that can be a little bit tricky. What is the imaginary line that divides Earth into the northern and southern hemispheres? The equator, that's right. Which one is all of space and everything in it, which includes multiple galaxies? The universe, that's right, and the space between galaxies. When Earth passes through the moon's shadow, sun, moon, Earth. I'm going to rephrase these, but basically think of, and this one is just wrong altogether. So I'm sorry about this, but this should be a solar eclipse. So when Earth passes through moon's shadow, that is what's happening. However, this one is intending to be the solar eclipse. And so for a solar eclipse, it's when the sun is being blacked out in specific parts of the Earth as you're looking at it. So I'll rephrase that one and make it more clear, but just remember for the difference between lunar eclipse and solar eclipse. A lunar eclipse is the one where the moon is not necessarily invisible, but not typical of just shining brightly. Ends up being kind of a red color. And then solar eclipses are ones where the sun's light is blocked out, because solar means pertaining to the sun and lunar pertains to the moon. Okay, next section here says choose the best word that completes the sentence. A space object found in the asteroid belt is an asteroid. Yep. The next one is the name of our galaxy. This is the one that was miswritten in the review that you did. It said the name of our solar system. Our solar system doesn't have a name. It is our solar system. That's the only name for it. But the name of our galaxy, which the solar system is in, is the Milky Way. Now, the blank, blank, blank is a science lab that is in orbit around the Earth. What's the name of that science lab orbiting us? That's right, International Space Station. And possibly some of you are just matching up with the number of blanks. That's fine, that just uses good common logic. This is the only one with 3 words. A blank is a group of stars that make a pattern in the sky. At least humans are able to observe a specific pattern, and they're always in that same pattern. Constellation is right. What are space objects made of frozen gases, ice, rock, and dust? When near the sun, a tail of gas forms. A comet, that's right. Look like this long streak in the sky. Okay, combination of frozen gas, ice, rock, and dust. How many dwarf planets are in our solar system? 5, that's right. And what is the name of a natural, rocky, or icy object that revolves around a planet? A moon, that's right. So we have just one. There are some planets that have none and some that have dozens, like all of the outer planets. Next question, which planet is a rocky inner planet with O2 atmosphere and 1 moon? O2 means oxygen. I'm going to be rephrasing this for the test. But what is the inner planet that has an oxygen atmosphere and 1 moon? That's right, Earth. This one says draw and label the lunar cycle and attach a copy to this document. Or you may draw it in the draw section. Please include all 8 phases. So I was looking through and you've got some good ones there, going through the phases of the moon, all 8. There should be 4 phases as far as the shapes. Well, let's see, let's count them up. So we've got crescent is one shape. There's a waxing and a waning crescent. Quarter, there's first and third quarter, but they should look about the same. And then there's gibbous, and then full moon and new moon. So 5 total actually, because new moon, I can't see it all. You can't see it in the sky. No light is reflecting, and full moon is completely reflecting. Now, next question. Which planet is a gas giant with 27 moons? Remember which one that is? Uranus, that's right. I'll be adding some extra information to that one. So try to remember the 27 moons for Uranus, but I'll give other tips about what planet that is. Why does Earth experience 4 sentences? 4 seasons, answering complete sentences. So why does Earth have 4 seasons? Many of you have given good answers on quizzes with this before. It's because of the tilt of the Earth. There is a top part of the globe and lower portion. This top part of Earth is called the northern hemisphere. The bottom part is the southern hemisphere. And depending on which one is getting more direct sunlight, that one is experiencing summer and the other one is experiencing winter. So have something to say along those lines. Make sure that is in complete sentences. You can say something like Earth experiences, I'm rephrasing that first question, 4 seasons because of the tilt. It has a southern and say it has southern and northern hemispheres. The one getting most direct sunlight has summer, but this changes depending on Earth's rotation. Or actually not Earth's rotation along its axis, but on its orbit to where it is. Okay, so something like that. Each planet is a rocky inner planet with a CO2, which is carbon dioxide atmosphere, and no moons. Which one has no moons? This one should be Venus. I was having to look up because I get Mercury and Venus, their atmospheres mixed up. So I was double checking that one. Okay, now Earth, Moon, and Sun interact together to work as a system. Please explain how that is. And I want you to think specifically of tides and eclipses. Two naturally occurring instances that have to do with Earth, Moon, and Sun's placement as they work together as a system. So you could write one sentence about tides, one sentence about eclipses, something like this. Earth, Moon, and Sun work together and could say, that tides happen depending on the placement. Specifically, the moon's gravitational pull pulls on the Earth and creates those tides, or that's part of the reason. So you could say something like Earth, Moon, and Sun work together as a system. Let's start with just that part. The moon's gravitational pull on Earth causes tides depending on Earth's rotation. Let's make that a new sentence. So I'm going to say, depending on Earth's rotation, different parts of Earth have high tide or low tide. Right? All right, so that's a few sentences. That's maybe a little bit more than you would be writing, but that's something about tides. Now let me write something about eclipses, and I'm going to break these up into two sections. So remember how eclipses are formed? Well, let's write about both lunar and solar eclipses. You can say lunar eclipses form when Earth, Moon, and Sun are aligned and the moon is in Earth's shadow. And we could say something about solar eclipses. Solar eclipses form when Earth, Moon, and Sun are aligned, which means basically in a straight line in this context. But I'll write in a straight line, and the sun is partially, because it's never going to be that all of Earth can't see the sun during the solar eclipse. It's just little parts. But the sun is partially blocked by the moon. Okay? So those are some examples of them working as a system. Basically, that means how do they interact with one another? Because here's the sun, which stays the same, or in the same spot. The Earth orbits it, and its rotation also changes things, like causing day and night. And then the moon orbits the Earth. So all three of them, depending on where they are in relation to one another, different things like tides and eclipses happen. Okay, next section, it says the Soviet Union launched this in 1957. What did they launch? And this is another section that I've got a little couple extra hints here on Bright Thinker. The Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1. It's the US that landed on the moon in Apollo 11. So think of the US with Apollo 11, Soviet Union, Sputnik. And the competition between the two is the space race. Okay, so let's go back to this. So Soviet Union launched this in 1957, Sputnik. Think of specifically which country launched it. Don't worry too much about the year, but that the Soviet Union launched Sputnik versus the US launched Apollo 11. So this one down here, Aldrin and Armstrong landed on the moon in this spacecraft. Well, they're American astronauts. They landed on Apollo 11. Or you might just remember that that's the one that landed on the moon. Speaking of Aldrin and Armstrong, who is the person who said that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind? Neil Armstrong, that's right. Because it was a huge leap for science and technology to be able to do that, even though technically for him it's just one step forward, but it was a huge advancement, not just for our country, but for the world. What was the competition between the Soviet Union and the US to reach new milestones in space exploration? Space race, that's right. Okay, next up, which planet is a gas giant with 13 moons? Okay, so I have to double check these ones. I've changed this up slightly for the test so that, once again, these ones about the specific planet have more detail than just how many moons they have. Okay, so it's not Uranus. We already chose that one as 27. I believe it's Neptune because Jupiter and Saturn both have more, but let me double check this. Yep, okay, Neptune. And you can use kind of reasoning like I just did for that as well if you're trying to think, I don't remember exactly how many, but I do know that Jupiter and Saturn are bigger planets with a lot more moons. They have dozens of moons. So I was back and forth between Uranus and Neptune, and you might think about just which one's bigger also to help you partially decide on that. So the bigger ones generally have more moons. Next question, which planet is a gas giant with 60 moons? And then the next one is which planet is a gas giant with 72? Well, which one is the bigger planet between the next two left that are gas giants? Of Jupiter and Saturn, Jupiter is larger than Saturn. And let me just double check that. As far as Jupiter's moons, yep, Jupiter has more moons, has 72, but possibly more than that. Just doing a quick Google search even shows more like 79. Name the planets in order from the sun. Mercury, what's next? Venus, next. Earth, Mars, what's next? Jupiter, next. Saturn, two more. Uranus, and Neptune. Okay, almost done with this review. This one says an Italian scientist who was the first to use a telescope to look at objects in space. Galileo Galilei is correct. Good job. Quite a name. What does Earth do around the sun? What is the word we use for Earth's trip around the sun? Orbit is the actual term for the trip around the sun, but we can also say revolves. That's the one actually that you'll have to choose for that. But I'm going to switch it up because I want you to really be focused more on the difference between Earth's trip around the sun, that's an orbit, versus it rotating on its axis. That's just its spin. And then orbit is the trip around the sun. And all planets have a rotation in an orbit. Now, blank blank revolve around the sun, but are smaller than planets. Dwarf planets, that's right. Dwarf means small. So they have everything that a planet would have, but they're just smaller, so they don't classify as our main 8 planets. A blank blank is a star and all the planets and other objects that revolve around that star. Solar system, that's right. We are in a solar system revolving around our sun, but there's lots of other solar systems in our galaxy and in the universe, because it's any system that is around a star. Planets rotate on a blank, which is an imaginary line through the center of the planet. Axis, that's right. This is its axis. This is the equator. The blank blank orbits 380 miles above the Earth's surface and sends back images of stars, galaxies, etc. The Hubble Space Telescope, that's right. That is not one like the International Space Station that astronauts go to. No, people do. This one is just in space sending pictures back, including ones of other galaxies. The constellation named after a hunter in Greek mythology is Orion. That's right. Okay, and last little couple questions. Which planet is a rocky inner planet with a thin atmosphere and 2 moons? Mars is correct. I just remembered that because Mercury and Venus have no moons. Earth has 1. Mars has 2. So just gets more and more. But then Jupiter has the most, Saturn has a little less, Uranus has a little less, and then Neptune. So it doesn't just keep getting bigger and bigger all the way across. Finally, which planet is an inner planet with no atmosphere and no moons? Well, Venus is the one that also has no moons. This one with no atmosphere is Mercury. Okay, so once you're done with that, you've got, once again, these little last, what I hope are kind of helpful little tips about finding the difference, especially between meteors, meteoroids, and meteorites. So that's all. This is a little longer than expected, but I wanted to make sure we went through all of these. Once again, the test will be a little bit different in some of these areas, including I'm going to add extra information to some of those questions about which planet, so that you don't have to know necessarily the number of moons. That's going to be one of the categories, but also some other things to help you. Okay, that's the end of this video. Have a wonderful day. Bye.